Hello, this is Damage and welcome back to the channel. In this No Rest for the Wicked video, I'd like to share my early access review of the game. No Rest for the Wicked came out into early access on April 18th, 2024. It is produced by Moon Studios, the creators of Ori 1 and 2, a platformer type game, and you're definitely going to see those platformer influences here on this Dark Souls action RPG game. It is advertised as an action RPG, however, in my opinion, it is a Dark Souls game with action RPG elements, and it's early access. So this could change, obviously, and I really hope it does, and I hope we see the addition of more action RPG, true action RPG elements added into the game and blended with the Dark Souls type game, so we can really see this game please the action RPG audience. No Rest for the Wicked has been out for about 3 weeks at the time of recording this video. And in that time, the developers have pushed out 6 hotfixes and 1 patch. And there is a difference. Moon Studio is breaking down their hotfixes, patches, and updates into 3 different categories. The hotfixes are more smaller. There's not going to be really any game-changing things in here, no new content, anything like that. Kind of fixes, a little bit of improvements to the game. Your patches are going to bring things that could change the gameplay, and then your updates are going to be ones that are going to add in new content to the game. For example, the very first update is going to add multiplayer to the game. At least that's the word on the street anyway. And if you don't follow the CEO on Twitter for No Rest for the Wicked, you definitely should. Thomas is very, very talkative on Twitter. He's always talking about the game, things that are coming down. I really get excited to check Twitter and see what he's posted to kind of see what's coming down the pipeline for No Rest for the Wicked. But I want to go ahead and talk about here what is in the early access version of the game. And again, this is 3 weeks into early access. Lots more to come. So this is just what I have for now. And I really do enjoy the game. However, there are some things that I want to see improved upon, and I can't wait to break it down all with you today. As I mentioned, No Rest for the Wicked is a Souls-like game with action RPG elements. It is an open world with loads and loads of exploration. And the exploration in this game is rewarding. You're not just going to be finding like health potions or maybe a material here. You're also going to be finding randomized loot. That makes exploring the world feel that much more rewarding. And on top of that, there's also shortcuts that you can find that'll help you traverse the world even more quickly when you're pursuing your daily bounties and challenges, which are missions you can do that we'll talk about a little bit later. It just makes it all feel more fluid, and it honestly just feels so rewarding to actually explore the world and having that influence of different levels of the world to traverse. I mean, the verticality of the world is just crazy. There's even some areas that are hidden like down under an area that you wouldn't even see unless you found a little tunnel in the ground or whatever it is. Absolutely love exploring this game, and there's something truly magical about world exploration in Wicked. Before we keep going here, one thing I want to point out, and I see this question pretty frequently, is how much can we expect out of early access? And that really comes down to you and your own play style. It took me about 25 hours to complete the campaign, but I think at the time of recording, I'm at 90 hours playtime, and I'm still playing the game almost daily, trying to discover all the end game builds. So in terms of content, I would say around 15, 20, maybe 30 hours if you're exploring everything. But like, for example, the very first boss in the game, you know, it took me probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to get to the first boss, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. But once I've learned where that first boss's location is, I can run from the start of the game to the very first boss in under 2 minutes, just now that I know the route. So again, it comes entirely down to your play style. You know, it took me 45 minutes my first time. Now I can do it under 2 minutes. So it really just comes down to how you want to play the game. If you want to explore everything, or if you just want to try to run through. But if you do try to just run through the game, you're going to get your butt kicked. So I do recommend kind of taking it slow and learning some of the game's mechanics, since it does have a really interesting combat system. Before we talk about combat, though, I want to take a step back here. I mentioned there's randomized loot you can find while you're out exploring. When it comes to loot, there's 4 different tiers you can find. There's your white gear, your common gear, blue, purple, and yellow. And they all act differently, and some have different benefits. And it's not like just other RPGs where it's like, well, there's a yellow piece of gear that's like a unique, that's the best item, I gotta go for that. The common items can actually be your best items as well. And here's the reason why. Those white items, and specifically here, we're going to be talking about weapons. Whenever you get a weapon, there's rune slots on here that you can put runes in, and this is how you're going to get your skills, and this is how you're going to kind of mold your build and your playstyle, is through what skills you're using. Whether it be a fire throw, maybe it's a healing ability or a buff. I have a hellfire thing that nukes the ground. There's loads and loads and loads of skills and runes to experiment with in this game. Now, the reason that's important is because that common piece of gear, the white item or whatever, has 4 rune slots on it. It's going to have one by default that you cannot modify, but you have 3 open rune slots on there. Really customize your skill setup. Now, the higher rarities are less customizable in this regard. Your blue weapons will have 2 rune slots, one by default, and then one you can choose to put on. And same with purple. And then when you get down to the unique items, those come with 4 runes that you cannot change. I think you can remove them to put onto other items, but you cannot change those runes around. So the unique items are more of like, if you're going to make a build, you're probably going to want to build around that specific weapon. So that leaves us with our blue and purple item tiers here. The blue one, you can get up to, I think it's 4 different enchantments on, and you also have gem slots on all these, so you can add on another modifier. And the purple tier is really interesting. These are your plagued items. So these are going to come with a lot of beneficial enchantments, but it's also going to have a curse on there. And this can be anywhere from losing XP when you take damage to losing stamina when you take damage, which obviously both of these are not a very good time. And you'll learn about this here in a little bit when we talk about combat. Obviously, if you're losing stamina on every hit, you're going to have a hard time attacking, unless maybe you're just a legend at the game and you never get hit. Who knows? But that's not me, so I try to avoid that plague at all costs. So I know we got a little bit deep there with the loot tiers, but it's a really interesting part of the game. It's an interesting way that they've done it, where it's not just get the highest tier and plus it up and you're golden. It's like you have all these options to really kind of min-max your build and use your brain a little bit. I love that part of the game as well. That brings us to combat. Combat in Norris for the Wicked is very intricate, I think is the correct word to use here. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a Souls-like game. When you very first start out, this is going to be very obvious of what I'm talking about. You're going to die. You're going to need to learn the mechanics and how this combat system works. We're going to try to go a little bit lighter here so that you can just get a general overview of the combat. The way it's set up here is you have obviously your life, stamina, and focus are kind of your main resources in combat. Health is pretty self-explanatory. Stamina is what fuels your attacks, your dodges, and sprints. And your focus is going to be what fuels your skills. Remember those runes we talked about on weapons? The way you use those skills is through your focus. Focus can be generated on successful blocks, parries, and attacks. And you can get enchantments that increase how much focus you gain as well. You can also get focus vials, so you can just fill up your focus before you even go into combat. There's a lot of different ways to play around it. Those are your 3 basic parts of combat. Other than that, you have your carry weight or your weight load, which if you've played a Souls-like game, you'll know exactly what that is. You have light, medium, and heavy. The heavier your gear, the slower you are. But if you're in the heavy part of your carry load, you can actually do like a shoulder charge with it. So you get like a new ability for having heavy armor. However, you're much slower. So again, this is going to come down to your playstyle and preference. I prefer to try to go fast, but then we're giving up armor. So there's ways you can min-max and kind of play around the game with having a heavy set of armor and then putting on those gems to lower the weight of that armor. And we're getting pretty deep here again, so let's stick to the combat. That's your weight. You also have parries, which are fun to try to time. Literally my first day playing the game, I sat there, like after my first play session was done, I was kind of going to hop off for the day, but instead I stayed up an extra hour and I just sat there with no armor or anything on, just my dagger, I think it was, or maybe it was a sword or something. And I literally sat there for an hour on one mob and just practiced my parry timings to try to really get it down. And the thing is, all the monsters in the game have different attack animations. So if you're just practicing on one mob for an hour, you're not really going to be trained up for another mob's attack pattern. So again, it is a game of skill, and you're going to need to practice and learn the game's mechanics to really try to master the game's combat. And it's rewarding when you do. Other than your parry, obviously you can dodge with your A button on controller. You have sprints, you have blocks, and of course you have backstabs. Backstabs are probably my favorite combat mechanic, just trying to get those backstab off, and it just feels so rewarding when you do actually pull it off. The combat system in Norris for the Wicked is something that really surprised me. I'm used to action RPGs, more on the hack and slash side of things, Diablo, Last Epoch, Path of Exile, where all of these mechanics, your energy, your dodges, your parries, are all based off just affixes on your gear. But over here in No Rest for the Wicked, and what sets this apart from being more of a Souls-like than an action RPG, is all of those are not on your gear. In fact, those are in your hands and the player's control. It's not a stat-based game there, it's a skill-based combat system. Combat's pretty intricate, but you're probably wondering, what classes does No Rest for the Wicked have to offer? Well, it's a classless game. You can make your own build. If you want to be a heavy armor battle mage, go for it. That's my Hellfire build is. Full heavy armor, but I'm a caster at the end of the day. It's a very fun and strong build as well. If you wanted to be some type of maybe cloth armor with ninja daggers, you can do it. There's literally no classes in this game. But the way that your class is kind of determined is going to be the weapons that you use and the skills that you're using as well. We've already talked about abilities. I just want to touch a little bit on the different weapon types. There's so many different weapon types in the game that you're going to find. You have anywhere from a dagger, sword, mace, katana, two-handed hammer, two-handed axe, one-handed axe, staff, mauls, shields, bows. I'm probably missing some, but there's loads and loads of weapon types in the game, and you want to make sure you're checking out all the different weapons of the game. And that brings me to another point here. If you didn't see my avoid this mistake video, we kind of talk about that. Don't lock yourself into one weapon type. Make sure you try them all out and see what fits your play style. But on top of just the different weapon types, you also have the itemization when it comes to enchanting and those different item rarities as well. And in fact, if you find a white item, I should have talked about this when we were talking about item rarities, but if you find a white item and you want to upgrade it to either blue or purple, you can just go to the enchanter, pay 1 silver, and it'll randomly roll a blue, or it could be a purple, and the enchants are entirely random. There is absolutely no way to have any control over what your enchantments will be. This is a very random crafting system. I'd like to see the enchanting system a little bit more deterministic. There is a scribe table in town that currently is not implemented in the game, but it makes me think in the future maybe we can re-roll some of the enchantments or something like that again. Pure speculation, I don't really know. That's just kind of my hopes, I guess. Another really awesome part too with this game, and I guess it's nothing really that special, we see this in every role-playing game ever, is you have attributes. Every time that you level up, you gain 3 attribute points to put into all of your different attributes of your choosing. Max level in the game is level 30, so this gives you 87 attribute points to spend. I actually made my very own attribute point calculator here. I'll just go ahead and show you. Here's all the different attributes you have. You have health, stamina, strength, dexterity, intelligence, faith, focus, and equip load. You can ignore the values I put in there. I kind of was tinkering around with different setups here. But when you very first start out, level 1 character, everything is 10 points. That's just the base attribute allotment on your brand new level 1 character. As you level up, you get 3 points to spend, and spend them however you want. Health obviously increases your health pool. Stamina is your stamina pool. And then you have your strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith. These 4 attributes will actually be what scales your weapon's damage. And on top of that, this will allow you to only equip certain weapons. Now, Thomas did say on Twitter that there's going to be a try before you buy mechanic coming to the game, where you can use a weapon even though you don't meet the requirements yet. It just won't be as effective until you've gotten the correct attribute points for that item. And then it'll reach full effectiveness. And also remember, this scales your damage. That's why I went a whole 57 points into dexterity on my dual wield rogue, assassin, whatever you want to call it. But that try before you buy system will be interesting. It's not out yet, so I really can't comment any more on it because I don't really know any more than that. Then you also have focus, which is your focus meter. Again, that's what fuels your skills. And then you have equip load. Equip load is very important in my opinion. Now on this specific character, you can see I only put 5 points in equipment load, and that's just because I was trying to get away with lighter armor so that I could scale my damage more. We did a little bit of testing over on the Damage Crew Discord, and it seems like the sweet point is if you want to go full heavy armor, and then each of those heavy armor, so you'd be plate armor would be what it actually is, and then you put a feathered gem in there, which will lower the weight of those. You do a full set doing that. You would need about 30 or 35 equipment load attribute points total to be able to be, I think it was to keep it at medium, the full set of plate gear with all feather gems. All right, we've done a lot of nerding out here. We've done a lot of min-max talk, and we've kind of gotten a lot deeper than I really wanted to in this review video. But hey, that's how my brain works, and I want to thank you so much for your time. We're not done yet, though. We got more to talk about here with No Rest for the Wicked. Thank you again for hanging out here. And if you're enjoying the video, don't forget that like and subscribe button. Let's keep going, though. No Rest for the Wicked has so much more to it to offer. The world. I think we touched a little bit on this at the beginning of the video. It is an open world with loads of secrets and loads of exploration. There's shortcuts, treasures to find. You also have gathering. You have mining, chopping wood, and fishing. And on top of that, you can refine all those materials to then craft. So there's a whole gathering, crafting system in this game as well. The best part of the open world in No Rest for the Wicked is as your character progresses the story, the world will scale up with you. So if you go back, let's say you complete the main story, or maybe you've killed the first boss, second boss, whatever it is. If you go back the next day or whatever, when the monsters respawn, there's going to be new monster types that were more challenging than the first time you went through the game. I absolutely love this. One thing I don't love, though, about this whole system here is when you kill one of the main bosses, the boss doesn't respawn unless you make a brand new world. I think what would be really cool is when everything respawned, if a new hard mode version of that boss would spawn in as well. And this could just be a daily respawn. Don't even tie it to bounties. Just have it something for players to discover. And perhaps those already exist in the game and I just haven't found them. The way that the worlds are set up in No Rest for the Wicked is they're actually called realms, and you can make as many different realms as you want, and your character is not tied to that realm. Your character can jump around to all different realms that you want to. You can farm different bosses through this method as much as you want to. However, I always have at least one main realm that I progress and build up, because you can actually build up the city of Sacrament and unlock even more bonuses there in town that we'll touch on here in a minute. I really love the realm system and how you can jump from realm to realm. And this is going to be huge when they add in multiplayer, and maybe your buddy has this maxed out world before you do, because they can no life the game and you can jump in with them, or vice versa. Maybe you're the one that can no life the game and your buddies, you can help them out. And it's just going to be awesome to be able to just jump around worlds with your character. I absolutely love just that sense of freedom, honestly. So I mentioned Sacrament. What the heck is Sacrament? That's the name of the main city in No Rest for the Wicked. And there's a lot of customization options in the city and a lot to evolve here. However, it does reach a hard limit. Once you've unlocked everything in the city, you're pretty much done. But from the way it seems to me is Sacrament was meant to be almost like a second character, another form of progression in a sense. All the different shops in the town, you have the cook, the inn, the alchemy vendor, there's a special vendor, the blacksmith, the woodworker, the enchanter. There might even be something else. You can upgrade all these, I believe it's 3 times, by giving resources to the city builder that you've gathered. So your clay, your wood, your ore, you can turn in to upgrade all these buildings. You can also unlock different shortcuts in Sacrament as well to help you traverse the city a little bit quicker and easier. On top of all this, when you do upgrade your vendors and those crafters, they get more recipes, they get more things they sell. It's worth it at the end of the day. But on top of this, you can also buy your own house that you can use. And this house is actually tied to your account. So all your characters in your account can access the house. There's currently, at the time of recording, there's 4 different houses you can buy in Sacrament. I think the first one's 8 silver and the most expensive might be 30 silver, something like that. But once you buy it, you own it, and you can decorate it however you want to. I pretty much just throw a bunch of stashes in mine so that I have a lot of storage. But if you want to, you can add in beds, you can furnish. They even did a house furnishing challenge on their Discord. And Alkalon won, and here's what their house looked like. Pretty cool what they did with their house. I personally have not spent that much time with the housing stuff, but it's awesome that they have that as an option in the game. And you can own all 4 houses if you can buy all 4 houses if you want to. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when multiplayer is added. I think the realm is going to be first come, first serve with housing. So we're kind of joking around. Maybe there's going to be some way to like rent out your house if someone wants to or something like that. Or I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with housing when they do add multiplayer to the game. Another part of Sacrament that you can do, and this one you cannot really upgrade in the sense that you give resources. What we're talking about here is your daily and weekly challenges and bounties. These reset as again daily and weekly, and these actually do upgrade and become better the more you've progressed the main story. Now, these challenges, you can go in there, you can take on all the challenges, you can accept them all at once. Now, the bounties, you can only accept one daily at a time and one weekly at a time, but they're rewarding and they're worth doing. And I really like the challenge and bounties because it gives you an incentive to go out and explore the world. And I think I had 70 hours in the game or so, and I went out and did a batch of these bounties and challenges, and I found like 3 secrets that I hadn't even discovered yet after all that time played. There's still more to discover. It's absolutely crazy, and I love that they keep the world fresh with the respawned enemies, the harder enemies spawning in, and then giving you a reason to go out and re-explore the world again. It's just, there's something truly magical about the game's world, exploration, and just getting out of there and not just being in the end game all the time. Before we jump into the end game, though, I want to touch a little bit on crafting. As I mentioned, there is alchemy, there's woodworking, cloth and leather crafting, whatever you want to call it, blacksmithing. There's probably other crafts that I'm forgetting. It's pretty much your basic crafting. You go out, you get materials, you find recipes, you learn the recipe, you craft the item. It's pretty self-explanatory. The one thing about this game, though, and I would say this is one of my main complaints, is when you go to refine your ore or your wood or leather, whatever it is, when you're refining raw materials, there's a wait time. And I really don't like this. And honestly, I don't see the point. But, it is what it is at the end of the day. I do hope they change this, though, throughout early access. Just give me access to my resources that I've earned. Or maybe even just shorten the times. I don't know. Make them like 3 seconds instead of 15 minutes for 1 silver ore. Again, just my opinion on that. But that's kind of how crafting works. It's there. I have not interacted with it much. I did min-max the buff food, though. But that is a whole nother thing. The cooking is the other craft that I forgot. Buff food's a big part of this game, too, that you're going to want to kind of balance and figure out as well. Let's go ahead and just talk about the end game. I know I mentioned it, and I've been kind of gushing about the open world and exploring quests, dailies, and weeklies, and all of that is awesome. There's also an end game to truly, truly test your build. Now, the end game feels like it's just kind of tacked on. There's about 10 different maps that randomly spawn, and after you've done a set amount of maps in a row without dying, you'll fight the hardest boss in the game, which is called Echo Knight. This boss, if your build's not up to snuff, you will die. You will die. Echo Knight is no joke. But once you do find a build that you can actually farm this endgame boss with, that's where you're going to be finding the new build-defining uniques that you can actually then come up with other builds for. And that's my favorite part of the endgame, is trying other builds. I would like to see more true endgame content in the form of these maps being expanded, because as I said, there's like a pool of like 10 different maps that cycle through. The monsters are always the same in these maps, same placement. You can just memorize the map and just blast through them. When I very first unlocked the endgame system, which I should have mentioned is called the Crucible, you do need a Fallen Ember to enter the Crucible, which is kind of like a key to enter, but you get Fallen Embers from doing everything in the game. You're going to have so many of them. You're probably never going to use all of them up. When I very first unlocked the Crucible, I was really excited. I was really hoping to see what they had with the open world and that exploration, gathering, all the just cool stuff I love about exploring, and seeing that added into the Crucible. I was really hoping to be able to go out and explore, maybe find some secrets. That really doesn't exist in the Crucible. Again, it seems like the Crucible was just kind of tacked on there at the end. But again, I'm not complaining by any means. I'm still playing and pushing almost 100 hours in the game and still enjoying it. So there's something there that I'm addicted to. I don't know if it's just the great combat or what it is, but there's something I absolutely love about No Rest for the Wicked in general. We've covered a lot in this video, and I want to thank you again for your time hanging out here. Seriously, it means the absolute world. We've talked about everything the game has to offer currently in early access. I want to go ahead and take a minute and talk about the future of the game, my hopes and things that are coming, stuff like that here. Now, again, I've been following Thomas on Twitter, and he is the CEO of No Rest for the Wicked, Moon Studios. He's always talking about No Rest for the Wicked and what's coming down the pipe. So we have a little bit of insight there from this. This isn't just all made up stuff that I'm thinking of. These are actually real things that are going to be added to the game at some point. The very first thing and probably the most exciting thing that people always ask about is multiplayer. Yes, multiplayer will be coming to No Rest for the Wicked. We don't have a timeline for when that'll be. Multiplayer will be up to you and 3 buddies, so a total of 4 players. Friendly fire will be turned on by default. Someone asked an interesting question regarding this about PvP, because PvP will be an option. There'll be arenas that you can go and consent and duel each other. But they asked, well, if multiplayer co-op has friendly fire on, isn't that PvP already? And the response from the devs was, the damage you take from the friendly fire is significantly less than what you'll take in true PvP. So friendly fire in multiplayer co-op, my knee-jerk reaction was like, no thanks. But we're going to have to see how it plays out, and who knows? Maybe we'll just have fun trying to team kill all your buddies. Who knows? I don't know. I think honestly, in all seriousness, I think friendly fire in a multiplayer co-op could be more annoying than fun. But the other part about multiplayer that I'm excited for, as I mentioned earlier, was the different realms. And I'm interested to see exactly what they're going to do with PvP. Is it just going to be a duel system? Or is there going to be like more to it? Like maybe PvP realms that you can like queue into, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But we know that multiplayer is coming down the pipe. And when it comes to the future of the game and all the patches, I already talked about earlier, all the different hot fixes and the patches. These developers are not messing around, man. They are just very responsive to the community, and they're putting out those patches. They're keeping up the patch cadence just at an insane rate. Very impressed by this. I really hope it continues throughout the lifespan of early access and even post-launch as well. And I really do think it will. The developers are very committed to this project. I'm pretty excited for multiplayer to be added. I can't wait to see what all it's going to bring to the table. But when I was planning out this video, I actually thought of some improvements I wanted to see to the game. And by the time I was actually able to like stop myself from playing the game to actually make a video, because I was so addicted to the game, they'd already fixed some of the things. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that real quick. The very first thing was inventory management. The very start of early access, you had your stashes, then you have your vendors all the way on the other side of town, and you're going back and forth, wasting time. They've already fixed it. You can actually access all your materials that are in your stashes. You can access all of those at the crafting bench, which is just absolutely massive. It saves so much time. And on top of that, when you go into your stash, if you already have items in there that are in your stash and you have the same ones in your inventory, you can hit Y on controller and it'll automatically put them all in there. You don't have to go by each little inventory slot anymore. It saves loads and loads of time. They've already added this. They've already improved this. On top of that, another complaint of mine was using a consumable or a buff food item. If you were to use a buff food item and then it was your last one in that stack or whatever, it would go over to like a crafting material that you had in your bag instead of an actual food in your bag. And then same with like the consumables. It was just really annoying, and it still needs a little bit of improvement, but they've fixed this where if you run out of a stack of buff food, it'll default to another buff food instead of a food cooking material. That's already added. But again, I'd like to see a way to be able to go in there and customize like my order of cycling through the food or consumables. I think that'd be a great addition to the game. A couple other improvements I'd like to see for No Rest for the Wicked is a quest log overlay UI. You can see, if you've seen any of my bounty videos, you can see that it shows you've completed when you kill one, but then it disappears. I'd like to see a way for the quest log to be static up there on my screen, and so I can see the progress of my bounties and challenges. And there's probably going to be people out there that think that will just cause screen clutter. Maybe you're right. Give us an option to enable or disable this feature. I think it'd be a very nice quality of life. And also on top of that, not just the bounties and the challenges, but also for your main story quest as well, just to kind of see what we're kind of going for here. Another thing I think would be really cool in No Rest for the Wicked is when you die, give us a reason to go back to our dead body. Please don't make it so we drop all of our loot. Like, maybe if we go back to our dead body, there's like our corpse took over a monster. Maybe there's just a reason to go back to our dead body other than to just continuing platforming and exploring. I don't know. It could be anything, just kind of something fun I thought of while I was playing through the game. I thought, I'm corpse running a lot, but there's no reason really other than just to go back to where I died. It'd be nice to get something for dying. I don't know. Overall, and at the end of the day, No Rest for the Wicked is probably one of my top games in 2024 so far this year. I'm absolutely loving this game, and I think a lot of it comes from my history with Dark Souls games. Demon Souls, I believe, was on PlayStation 3, and then Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2 and 3, and there's also Bloodborne. I really like those games that are challenging with that rewarding combat, but I also really love action RPGs where I can factor in min-max, come up with my own builds, and loot, obviously. And those two are meshed together in No Rest for the Wicked. Now, it's not done perfectly, and I think they're still learning, and they will make this blend a lot better as the future unfolds for No Rest for the Wicked. The Souls part of the game, they've nailed, in my opinion, and I just can't wait. And hopefully they add in more action RPG elements. There's already talks of adding in skill trees of some sorts, refining the attribute system. There's so many things they could do with this game. They could even make it so like each skill rune has its own skill tree or something like that. There's literally the options for this game are just limitless. And I really truly believe in the developers of this game to bring these two genres to mesh well together. You can think about it. I was thinking about this the other day. We currently have two main action RPG genres, right? You have your hack and slash action RPG, so your Path of Exile, Last Epoch, Diablo, and then you have your roguelike action RPGs as well, right? Where you're getting loot, you're getting upgrades, but you have the permadeath and you restart your run. Those are both like sub-genres or genres of action RPGs in my mind, each with their own unique blends of another genre. I really hope that No Rest for the Wicked can achieve that goal of blending the Souls-like, and then we can add a third type of action RPG genre to the list, that Souls-like action RPG. I believe it can be done. I think there's still a long ways to go on this for No Rest for the Wicked. And again, I'm hopeful for the future, and I think they're going to pull it off. That's going to wrap it up for my early access review for No Rest for the Wicked. I do recommend picking up this game and keeping an eye on it throughout early access. Current state of the game, it is kind of shallow on content, but if you're one to min-max builds and you really like that challenging play style that is rewarding and that gameplay that it's going to kind of push you to your wit's end, that you push through and then you're rewarded, maybe it'll suck you in like it did for me. I really absolutely love the combat, the loot and itemization, and runes needs more updates. But that is pretty much it for No Rest for the Wicked, my early access review. I want to thank you sincerely for your time in watching this video and hanging out with us here today. I hope you found this video useful and or entertaining. If so, don't forget that like button and subscribe to the channel for more action RPG videos. The best way to support me and my family is through becoming a YouTube channel member today or leaving a super thanks on the video below. Your view alone means the absolute world. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.